Okay, I would like to introduce John Wells, who is a founder of this club and probably the best teacher I've ever talked to about wood turning and other things. And he makes things that blow our minds. And he lives in Boulder Creek, and he's been a member all the way through, been president, everything. John, thank you so much for all your support.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sue. Okay, today we are talking about thin things like finials and goblets. And these are 3 samples here. This one you've all seen before. This one I just did for a sample. And this was another sample. This one I think got broken in the, it doesn't really show, but it's broken in the box coming down this morning, but it did not break on the lathe. Okay, so I'm going to do one of these, and I'm going to talk about different tools that you can use. You don't have to do this just one way. As Wells always says, if you ask 3 wood turners how to do something, you'll get 4 or 5 answers. So anyways, what I usually start with to do a finial like that is a 3/4 inch square piece held in these spigot jaws that you can see here, which I find tremendously useful for all kinds of things. So the first thing would be to rough it down to round. You can use a roughing gouge if you want.
What kind of wood?
This is walnut, piece of walnut that I got out of my scrap box. But you could also use a 1/2 inch gouge. Or you could use a skew. But gouge is easier on this case. 2040, something like that. On my one way at home, I do these all the way at the top of the ring. So, what you do is start at this end and work your way back towards the headstock. So if you want to put a feature like this on the end, that would be the first thing to do. But you don't want to turn it all the way to a point. You want to leave it attached to the tailstock. Okay, so I've got a basic shape, but I'm going to leave it like that. I'm not going to detach it from the wood there. So the basic process as I work my way back is don't take the mass away from down here. Just work on the spot that you're working on, get it finished, and then move on to the next section. So. Lower this just a skosh.
John, could you talk with steel you're using
This is a 3/8 spindle gouge.
now?
This is a 1/2 inch skew.
What you want to do on this kind of fine work is to never have 30
What do you know about doing little stuff?
Exactly. Never have 30 people watch you while you do it. That's it.
I think that's good advice.
What's your length?
Again, it's like 2040 actually, is what it says. God knows what it actually is. Okay, now as I'm going to take it down to the thin part, and as I do that, I'm going to keep cutting towards the headstock, keep the pressure going that way rather than into the wood or this way, and that way it's more stable. Unfortunately, to get into this part, I'm going to have to go that way. A little curve on it. What I did was just try and shift and get my view going down onto one of the waves, so it makes the wood stand out more and I can actually see.
That's red.
That's 220.
Finish.
I know I'm not doing a lot of talking. It does take a bit of concentration.
So one thing that's important is that you saw how he made the first parts and then sanded that, but you never want to touch that again. Right? You want to finish it off and then go on the next bit, but don't then once you're off the edge, oh, let me just touch that tip again. That's, then you might as well start again.
You actually get a smoother cut, the skew.
Touching it again.
So what I was doing when I was cutting with the skew was I was supporting the wood with my fingertip as I was cutting. When you use your hand or your fingers or whatever as a steady rest, kind of a guide is if you're pressing hard enough for it to get hot and hurt, then you're pressing too hard. So it should just be kind of warm. This is not the best job I've ever done. What?
You blame it on the leg.
Absolutely.
Now, because John never makes mistakes.
No.
That's right.
Actually, one of my favorite sayings is, "'Tis a poor craftsman that blames his tools."
True.
good one.
I think I got lucky.
I can't see that one. I have to look. Look at it.
Hey, John.
Hmm?
I've seen some people online use like a string for a steady rest. You sort of wind it around. Have you ever tried that?
I have never tried that. That's for doing really long stuff, like
Okay.
tembleurs, trembleurs. And I've seen articles about that, but never really seen the point.
What grid is that?
220.
220.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, has anybody started a betting line out there about whether I'll break this or not?
Elliot, good? Get it.
Down here next to the chuck, there's a lot more support, and you can. I actually have no idea where I'm going with this design.
Isn't that fine to find with your?
It's just
If I screw it up, it's not like the wood costs a lot. You know?
you use it.
That's about all the room we have. Huh?
Yeah.
Anybody doing anything?
Parting tool. So when you part off, if you go in at a little bit of an angle and you create a recess under there, then it'll sit flat on a flat surface, or you can put it on a curved surface and it'll fit.
Might have a little donut sugar on it.
So this is wood turner's finish or friction polish. You know, I'm not really sure whether it's shellac or lacquer based. Either way, it works.
What was the grit of the sandpaper you used?
What?
What was the grit of the sandpaper you used?
220.
220?
220. When do I just choose to use a skew as opposed to a spindle gouge? The point of the skew is particularly appropriate for cutting down in between these fins or whatever you want to call them. Doing that with the long point of the skew. And it's really great for planing along a surface, getting a good finish. And keeping a straight line is a little bit easier than a gouge, although I could do it all the way through the gouge. Yeah. And once this is dry, you just go back and polish it. What it actually does is melt the stuff and blend it into a smooth, shiny surface. I think it's Mylan's friction polish. I just get it from Craft Supply.
John, what kind of angle do you have your skew ground at?
What kind of what?
Angle do you have your screw, your skew?
My skew at?
Yeah.
It's pretty straight. I used to be a lot sharper, and I've decided that I don't like that over the years. And for a while, I went with a curved one, like Raffin recommends. And that was pretty good, but I've recently gone to just straight and
50-50.
Yeah. Okay. Turn it sideways.
this way.
So you can see
Okay,
the
you see
angle.
the angle.
I don't hone any of my turning tools.
Slid sideways into the finish line.
And we have a finial. And I left a little tenon on the end to go into whatever. So that's that. Do you want me to attempt a goblet, or are we bored of this? Put it between centers, turn a tenon on the end so you can put it in a chuck. So you need some kind of cone center or something on your tailstock. Once you have the wood in here and have it centered. Okay, so now I've got the wood running true, and this is when you turn the cup. Okay, you have to turn it. As they say in Mexico, a punto del aire, at the point of the air. Just with end grain hollowing, or you could bore it out and then do it. I do most of it with a gouge, with a spindle gouge, and then finish with just a little scraper, a little round nose scraper like this. But that's not today's topic of conversation. So once you've got the cup turned, then got to support it. You don't want to put a lot of pressure, because as the shaft gets thin, then it will start to flex more. So you want a minimum of pressure. Well, that's something I didn't mention. When you're doing something long and thin like the finial or something, you can also like put a wood fixture on your live center and use super glue and glue your piece that you're turning to the wood on the live center, and then you can back the live center this way, and instead of turning under compression, you're turning under tension, and that'll help it run smoother if you've got flexing problems. Okay. I left the squares on. Usually I would turn it all around and then do the cup, but you could. Should probably have a face cap on for this one. It's not a big deal. Get this thing closer. If when you get close, it can get hard to see irregularities in the stem, if you just run your fingers over it, your sense of feel is amazingly accurate. So as I'm doing this, I have the base of my hand firmly planted on the tool rest. That's where all my pressure is. It is not against the wood. Tool rest drives me crazy. That's terrible. It's still a little fat in that section there. You guys don't need to watch it. This is where riding the bevel is really important. You just stick your tool in here. You're liable to get a catch where the wood comes around and catches your tip here and goes whoop. And you think, it didn't do anything, and then you turn the machine off and you got one of those spiral grooves. But if you come up and you put the bevel right where you've already cut, even if it's just a very tiny tip, then it's supported and you can cut with confidence. For the purposes of demonstration, we're going to call that good.
It's good.
When you look at this, you'll notice there's a black mark in there from it rubbing on here. If I were doing a finished thing or something, I'd put a piece of cloth or something in there to keep that from happening. So.
It's an embellishment, John.
You could say that. Way back when I first started, like 40 years ago, and I was going to West Bay, they had a contest, and a guy won one section of the contest with this goblet that had fantastic chatter work on the inside. He said, but I got all that chatter and I didn't know what to do about it, so I just left it. It's a total accident.
Feature.
So, anyways, that's it. That's all I have.
Bye.